On land and in the open sea, a few animals grew beyond all the rest. The tallest, the heaviest, the longest, and the largest heart that has ever beaten. But the greatest of them all has never once touched dry land. The blue whale, the largest animal that has ever lived, larger than any dinosaur that ever walked the earth. Its heart is the size of a small car, and its tongue alone weighs as much as an elephant. Giants. Nothing before it was ever this big, and perhaps nothing after it ever will be. To be a giant is to hold a kind of power. Few predators would dare. The cold bites a little less. The world, most of the time, simply makes room. But size is a gamble. A giant must eat more, breed slower, and carry a body that can never truly hide. And when the world changes too fast, the giants are almost always the first to fall. This is the story of the largest creatures alive. How they grew so vast, what it costs them, and why a world without giants would be a far emptier place. Let us begin where the giants walk in daylight, in plain sight. The African plains hold the largest animal on land. The African elephant. A big male stands taller than a truck and weighs as much as 6. And yet, for all that bulk, he moves almost without a sound, on feet cushioned like soft pillows. An elephant must eat for the size it carries. nearly 150 kilos of grass, bark and leaves in a day. A river of food passing through the largest belly on land. At the center of the herd walks the oldest female, the matriarch. She carries no map, and yet she remembers every waterhole, every danger, every dry season path, learned across 60 years of life. When the drought comes, the whole herd lives or dies by what she remembers. A calf is born after almost 2 years inside its mother, the longest pregnancy of any animal on Earth. It will lean on the herd for a decade before it can stand alone. To be this large is to grow up slowly, and slowness, we will see, has a price. Nearby feeds an animal built along the opposite plan. Not wide, but impossibly tall. The giraffe, the tallest animal in the world. A grown male can look into a second-floor window, nearly 6 meters above the ground. Every inch of that height is a problem to solve. To lift blood all the way up to a brain so high, the giraffe needs a heart of pure muscle and blood pressure twice our own. When it bends to drink, special valves in the neck keep that pressure from bursting the vessels in its head. Height should mean safety, and yet the giraffe is vanishing in silence. In only 3 decades, their numbers have fallen by almost 40%, quietly, while the world looked at other animals. Few even noticed the tallest creature on Earth was slipping away. A little to the south, in the mud along the river, rests a giant that kills more people than any lion. The hippopotamus, 3 tons of muscle wrapped in bare grey skin. It looks slow, almost comic, half asleep in the shallows. It is neither. A hippo cannot truly swim. It walks along the bottom, pushing off the riverbed in long, weightless bounds. By day, it hides from the sun that would crack its skin. By night it climbs out to graze, and it defends its stretch of river with a fury that gives way to nothing. Sharing that same water is the second largest animal on land. The white rhinoceros, 2 tons, armoured in folds of skin, crowned with a horn of solid keratin, the very same stuff as our fingernails. For that horn, worth more by weight than gold, we have very nearly wiped it from the earth. In the far north of that story, only 2 northern white rhinos remain. Both female. The last male died a few years ago. Their kind is already gone, still breathing, but with no way back. A giant erased for a lump of hardened hair. Not every giant eats grass. Some are built to hunt. Along the rivers of the north, where the salmon run, waits the largest land predator that walks on 4 legs. The brown bear. On the coast of Alaska, gorged on fish, the biggest of them, the Kodiak, can pass half a ton. Standing, it is taller than any man and strong enough to snap a spine with a single blow. For a few short weeks, the river gives everything. A bear must eat a year of fuel before the winter, tens of thousands of calories a day, laying down the fat that will carry it asleep through months of ice and hunger. Farther north still, on the frozen sea itself, hunts its white cousin. The polar bear, the largest bear of all, and the only one that lives as a true hunter of the sea. A big male can weigh what 6 men weigh together, and smell a seal through a meter of solid ice. But this giant is built for a world that is melting beneath it. The bear hunts from the sea ice, and the sea ice comes later each year and breaks up sooner. Every lost week of hunting is fat the bear does not gain. Of all the giants, few stand on ground so fragile. Where the warm rivers meet the sea, another hunter has ruled almost unchanged since the age of the dinosaurs. The saltwater crocodile, the largest reptile alive. The old males reach 7 meters and a full ton and carry the strongest bite ever measured in a living animal. It does not chase. It waits for hours, for days, a floating log with eyes until something comes to drink. Then the water explodes. This is a design so perfect that it has barely needed to change in over 100 million years. And through the forests of 2 continents move the giants that need no legs at all. In the flooded forests of South America lies the heaviest snake on Earth, the green anaconda. As thick as a man and heavier than any other serpent, it spends its life in the water, where its own weight no longer holds it down. Half a world away lives the longest of all, the reticulated python, stretching past 7 meters. Neither has any venom. They do not need it. They are simply too large and too strong, and they hold their prey until it can no longer breathe. Now, look up, because some giants took to the air, and others gave it up entirely. On the same African plains runs the largest bird in the world. The ostrich, nearly 3 meters tall and far too heavy to ever leave the ground. So it did the opposite. It learned to run at 70 kilometers an hour, faster than a racehorse, on 2 legs tipped with claws. And it lays the largest egg of any living bird, a single egg the weight of 2 dozen from a hen. Out over the open sea moves a very different giant of the air, one that has traded weight for reach. the wandering albatross. It has the longest wingspan of any bird alive, over 3 meters, tip to tip. On those wings, it can glide for hours without a single beat, riding the wind across entire oceans, circling the bottom of the world. It comes to land only to breed, and it breeds slowly, 1 chick every 2 years. When the long-line fishing hooks began to take the adults, the giant could not replace them fast enough. Once again, the slow arithmetic of the giant, undone in a human lifetime. High over the mountains soars the greatest flying bird of all, measured wing to wing. The Andean condor, a bird so large it seems impossible in the air. It barely flaps at all. It hangs on the rising heat of the mountains, scanning the slopes for the dead, a giant that lives on what other giants leave behind. Away from the warm plains in the cold of the north, size becomes a different tool. Here, being big is how you keep the heat in. The moose, the largest deer that has ever lived. A bull carries antlers wider than a man is tall. A rack of bone he grows fresh and drops every single year. And across the plains of North America moves the heaviest animal of that continent. The bison, a ton of muscle and matted fur, built to face a blizzard head-on. Once, 60 million of them shook the ground of a continent. In a single human century, we shot them down to a few hundred. We will come back to what happened next. On the ice at the edge of the sea, hauls out a giant armed with tusks. The walrus, well over a ton, packed under a hand's width of blubber against water that would kill us in minutes. Those tusks are teeth, grown long, used to haul its own weight from the sea and to carve breathing holes through the ice. And the ice, once again, is where its whole world is quietly coming apart. But for the true giants, the largest of them all, we must leave the land completely. We must go back to the sea. In the ocean, freed from the crush of its own weight, life can grow to sizes the land could never hold. The humpback whale. 16 meters of muscle that can throw its entire body clear of the water and fall back in an explosion you can hear underwater for miles. They hunt together with a tool made of nothing but air. Diving deep, they blow a rising net of bubbles around a shoal of fish, drawing it tight, herding the panic upward until they rise through the middle with mouths wide open. No two groups do it quite the same way. It is not instinct alone. It is learned and passed on. Deeper down hunts the largest predator with teeth on the planet. The sperm whale. The males reach 18 meters and carry the largest brain of any animal that has ever lived. They dive into a darkness 2 kilometers down, holding a single breath for over an hour, into a black world we have almost never seen. Down there, they hunt a giant we still barely know. The giant squid, an animal with an eye the size of a dinner plate, glimpsed alive only a handful of times in all of history. We know these battles happen only from the round scars the squid leaves, ringed across the whale's great heads. Back in the sunlit water glides the largest fish in the sea and one of the gentlest. The whale shark, up to 18 meters of spotted skin, a mouth over a meter wide, and not a single tooth that matters. This giant strains the smallest life in the ocean, drifting clouds of plankton, filtered quietly through a body the size of a bus. A Alongside it banks another gentle giant on wings of its own. The manta ray, 7 meters from tip to tip, turning slow somersaults through the plankton. It has the largest brain of any fish, and in the mirror it seems to know its own reflection, a spark of something we once thought only the great giants of the land could hold. Drifting up near the surface basks one of the strangest giants of all. The ocean sunfish. It looks like a huge swimming head that never bothered to grow a body. And yet, it is the heaviest bony fish in the world, well over a ton, tipped on its side at the surface, soaking up the sun. But not every giant of the open sea drifts in peace. Some are here to hunt. The great white shark, the largest predatory fish alive. 6 meters of muscle, built around a mouth lined with serrated teeth. It rises from the gloom beneath a seal and strikes with a force that nothing in the water can shrug off. And yet even the great white answers to something larger, the killer whale, the biggest of all the dolphins, and perhaps the cleverest hunter in the sea. Orcas hunt in families, and they hunt everything: fish, seals, and the great whales themselves. When they arrive, the great white does something it does for nothing else. It flees the water entirely. On a few cold beaches at the end of the world, the largest of all the seals comes ashore to fight. The southern elephant seal. A great male is 4 tons, the weight of a car and more, and he will spend the breeding season slamming that weight against rivals, in battles that leave the sand streaked with blood. For the right to a beach, the giants bleed. And through all these waters swims a giant that outlived the dinosaurs, and now cannot outswim us. the leatherback turtle, the largest turtle on Earth, over 2 meters of leathery shell, diving deeper than any reptile alive, chasing jellyfish through the cold and the dark. For 100 million years, that has been enough. But a plastic bag adrift in the blue looks exactly like a jellyfish, and the giant cannot tell the difference. There are giants too that hide in shapes we never expect. In the misty forests of Central Africa lives the largest primate of all, our own giant cousin. The gorilla. A silverback male carries 200 kilos of muscle and the strength of several men, and he almost never uses it. He spends his days quietly, gathering leaves, watching over his family, a gentle giant whose fearsome chest beat is a bluff, meant to keep the peace, not to break it. And in a few cold rivers of Asia hides the largest amphibian in the world. The giant salamander, nearly 2 meters long, a living fossil that breathes through its skin and has crept, almost unchanged, through the last 170 million years. It survived the death of the dinosaurs. It may not survive us. And on a scatter of islands in the Pacific lives a giant that counts its life not in years, but in centuries. The Galapagos giant tortoise. 1/4 of a ton of shell and slow patience, it can live past 150 years, outlasting every person who ever watched it hatch. It grew huge on islands with nothing to fear. Then the sailing ships came and carried them off by the thousand, stacked alive in the hold for meat. A giant with all the time in the world, until, all at once, it had none. Because a pattern runs through every one of these lives, and it is time to name it. To be a giant is not only power, it is also a burden. A giant needs more of everything. More food, more space, more water. A body the size of a bus is a furnace that must be fed every hour of every day, or it fails. A giant breeds slowly. One calf after a year, or two or more, guarded through a long and dangerous childhood. When many are lost at once, there is no quick way to replace them. The bigger the animal, the slower it can ever come back. And a giant cannot hide. When the climate lurched, when the ice came or the forests fell, it was the largest animals, again and again, that vanished first. Our own world is haunted by the giants it has already lost. The mammoth, taller than an elephant, gone from the tundra. The ground sloth, the size of a bear, gone from the Americas. The giant deer, with antlers spanning 4 meters, gone from the north. As the ice pulled back, and as we spread across the earth, the greatest beasts of the age went silent, one by one. And yet, while they lived, these giants did something that no small animal ever could. They built the world around them. An elephant is a gardener the size of a bulldozer. It tears down trees and opens the forest to light. It digs for water in a dry riverbed, and every other animal drinks from the hole it leaves behind. Its dung plants 1,000 seeds a day. Take away the elephant, and the whole forest begins to change shape. And out at sea, the great whales do something stranger still. They dive to feed in the deep, and they return to the surface to release vast clouds of waste rich in iron. That is fertilizer, spread across the barren open ocean. It feeds the tiny plants that make much of the air we breathe, and that pull carbon down out of the sky. a single great whale locks away as much carbon as a whole forest of trees. And when at last it dies, it sinks, carrying all of that carbon down into the deep, where it stays for centuries. The giants of the sea are, quietly, part of what keeps our planet cool. Which makes what we did to them harder to forgive. In a single century, we hunted the great whales almost to nothing. Close to 3 million of them, killed for oil and meat. The blue whale, the largest animal that ever lived, was reduced by 99%. From 250,000 down to a few hundred survivors scattered across an empty ocean. On land, we did the same with a gun and a market. Elephants cut down for the ivory in their faces. Rhinos for the horn on their noses. The giants, so long protected by their size, found that their size had become the very thing that priced their heads. For the giant is the first the hunter wants, and the last the world can replace. And still, this is not where the story has to end. Because when we finally stopped, some of the giants showed us something remarkable. They began to come back. When the world banned commercial whaling, the humpbacks answered. In parts of the ocean, they have returned to nearly the numbers they had before we ever raised a harpoon. The song we almost silenced is loud again. The bison we shot down to a few hundred now number in the tens of thousands, brought back from the very edge. The condor, down to just 22 birds in all the world, was caught and bred by hand and set free again into its mountains. Even the blue whale, slowly, is beginning to rise. The giants breed slowly, but given room, given time, given a little mercy, they endure. It is the one advantage of a life built to last. To lose them was never only to lose something large and beautiful. It was to lose the gardener of the forest, the plough of the plains, the pump that feeds the sea. A giant is not simply the biggest thing in the landscape. Very often, it is the thing that holds the landscape up. If we give them the space and the time and the quiet they need, the giants of the earth will endure. And a world with giants in it will always be a wilder, richer, and more astonishing place than one without. For the largest hearts on our planet are still beating, and it is not yet too late to listen.